Have you ever noticed how, over the past few months, the world's greatest superpower, the US, has found itself trapped in a quagmire where every move only makes it weaker? And the ironic part, the world's biggest competitor, China, is watching this unfold and winning right before our eyes without firing a single bullet or starting a new war. What is actually happening behind the scenes that the world is missing? Let's find out. Back in late February, when the US and Israel launched a major war against Iran, Washington's theory of victory was crystal clear. They believed that toppling the Iranian regime would break China's back. Why? Because China buys a massive chunk of its cheap, discounted oil from Iran and Venezuela. America's strategy was simple: cut off those pipelines, expose China as a weak and helpless bystander, and reassert undisputed US superpower dominance. However, the reality turned out to be a disaster for Washington's plans. China has spent decades quietly preparing for a scenario almost identical to this, fearing what Beijing calls the Malacca dilemma, knowing the US Navy could blockade its oil routes during a wartime crisis. China executed a multi-pronged masterstroke. First, China quietly built the world's largest strategic oil reserve by late 2025. Their government and state backed stockpiles were large enough to sustain 100% of China's normal oil consumption for over 100 days without any additional import, dwarfing America's national reserve. Second, China systematically diversified its energy architecture away from oil. While the US relies heavily on imported oil and gas, China powers nearly 60% of its electricity with domestic coal and has invested heavily into renewables. On top of that, by aggressively adopting electric vehicles across the country, China drastically slashed domestic demand for gasoline. So, when the war spiked global oil prices to unbearable levels, hurting consumers across the US and Europe, China calmly reduced its important oil purchase, setting a cap on global inflation while suffering minimal internal damage. But the most alarming shift is happening in global finance. By weaponizing the US dollar through heavy sanctions on nations like Russia and Iran, Washington inadvertently accelerated the death of petrodollar. Today, over 90% of trade between Russia and China is settled completely dollar free using the Chinese yuan. Meanwhile, China's alternative to the SWIFT banking system known as CIPS is seeing massive transaction booms, quietly eroding America's ultimate tool of global leverage. The geopolitical fallout has been severe. US allies in Europe and the Middle East are growing increasingly frustrated, feeling that America's military adventures are simply exporting inflation and economic pain straight to steps. Even Taiwan is watching with deep anxiety, asking a terrifying question: if the US military struggles to swiftly defeat a regional power like Iran, would Washington really risk a total war with China to defend Taiwan? Napoleon Bonaparte once famously advised, never interrupt your enemy while he is making a mistake. Today, China is following that exact playbook. It is not winning through aggressive expansion but by patiently letting America exhaust itself through strategic miscalculations. Is this the gradual decline of American hegemony or just the shouting worth of a new world order? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you learn something new today, make sure to share this video.